Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum dear students. I am Mr. Kadim Khan and I am a lecturer in the Institute of Computing, Kuwait University of Science and Technology. Today we will take lecture number 21 of the subject of software quality engineering, in which we are going to discuss the automated Microsoft unit test in the Visual C Sharp.net. Dear students, in the previous lecture we have discussed JUnit test for Java language. Here we are exploring another techniques of automated Microsoft unit test, and here the language will be Microsoft Visual C Sharp.net, because in the software industry we use C Sharp.net mostly for the desktop applications, so that's why we should also cover this area. Here first of all we will discuss the importance of the Microsoft unit test, and then we will use certain examples to illustrate the Microsoft unit test in the Visual C Sharp.net. This is the discussion agenda. It has the topics of test-driven development. Here we will discuss what is the test-driven development. Then we will discuss what is the Microsoft unit test in the Visual C Sharp.net. Then we have the example of Microsoft unit test in the Visual C Sharp.net. And here we will discuss each and every steps for conducting Microsoft unit test in the Visual C Sharp.net. First we need to create projects, that will be the new projects. Then we have to type the project name there, and then we have to write the test cases. You can also write the program first, but it is better to write the test cases, because from the software requirement specification document first we designs the test case and then we perform the development, and then that development is tested based on the test cases. So that's why we need to write the test cases prior than the program logic. In the first steps we will write the program logic, which will be the in fact different statements in our program. Then we have to show the test explorers. Here we will explore the test explorers. Test explorer shows the results of the test. Then we will run the test. Here we will execute the test or attempt the test, and at the end we have to monitor the results of the test, that whether this test has been passed or failed. So at the end we will identify the bugs or defects or the statement which contains certain defects due to which the test has identified the problem in the program. Now, test-driven development. Test-driven development, as its name indicates, it is a development technique used to test the software code during the development. So when we develop the software, then at the same time we also test the code. So that is called test-driven development, in which we use certain high-level tools like Microsoft Visual C Sharp.net for performing the test-driven development approach. So first we have to write the test case first, and then write the simple program codes which will be tested by using this test case. In the test-driven development concepts, which we are going to follow different approaches, where we will write simple code first and then create the unit test based on the possible situations. So first of all we need to write the program logic or the test cases, and then we will execute that particular test here. First we can also write the test here, and then we can write the code, but that will make the test pass. So it depends on the individual's choice, that whether one of the ways that they love to follow to test the code. So first it's up to you that whether you are writing your code first and then you write the test case, or whether you are writing the test case first and then you can write your logic code which will be tested here. Now, what is Microsoft test? Basically, Microsoft unit test is used to test the code or used to test the unit of the programming. So Microsoft Test is used to test the code without using any third-party tool. Here, unlike the Java, which requires the third-party tools, but Microsoft Test requires only Visual Studio. You need to install the Microsoft Visual Studio integrated development environment, and with using that particular integrated development environment, you test the software. So Microsoft Test is a number one open source test framework. Open source frameworks means that it is available free with the Microsoft, and you can use that particular framework. You can change the code as according to your own choice. So it depends on the programming source code. If the programming source code logic is in fact just a statements or sequential statements, then you can easily test that. And if there are certain loop statements or if else conditions, then you write the complex test cases there. So this is the shift along with the Microsoft Visual Studio integrated development environment. This is the combined test first development where you first write your test just before you write enough productions. Enough production means that first you need to write the test cases, then you will write your programming. Because the test cases are created from the software requirement specification documents, and then based on that particular test case, you write the programming logic here. And the code is to fulfill the test. So that code will be in fact tested based on our test case that we have created in the Visual Studio. So you can rewrite the code to pass the test. Now Microsoft Test, that is version 2, which is now in the our latest Visual Studio, is available as a open source. Open source means that you can change that particular code according to your own choice or according to your own purpose. Basically, the code you have to write the test cases, and about that particular test cases you will write the code. Now you are using the older version, so you need to remove the Microsoft Visual Studio. So if you are using the older version which do not support the Microsoft Test version 2, so you have to uninstall that particular Visual Studio tool, and that will be the quality tools. So you need to reinstall the quality tools, and you need to add the reference. Here's the frameworks, that is the quality tools unit test frameworks. Now new reference will be added here, and the new reference will be Microsoft Test frameworks, and also you need to add another reference, that is Microsoft Test adapters from the new Get package manager. So new Get package manager is in fact available in the package manager, and then there you will select these two tools if you are using the older version of Microsoft Visual Studio. But if you are using the new versions that we have already installed in our classrooms, that is Visual Studio 2019 or above versions, but in fact the current version is 2019, so you do not need to install the Microsoft Test frameworks. So just you can use that particular frameworks here. Now here we will perform an example of Microsoft unit test in the Visual C#.NET. So for this purpose, first you need to install the Microsoft Visual C#.NET 2019 version. You can also install the previous versions, but better is to install the latest versions from Microsoft websites. So I have already installed the Microsoft Visual C#.NET 2019 version. Here we will perform a basics program which can easily be understandable by any novice or a new users who have just started to learn the C# and wants to learn how to write the unit tests here. So this will be a very basic examples. You can write or use this example for your final year project as well. but you need to write the unit by unit testing here. So you cannot perform the integrated test or the full acceptance test of the projects. So you will test one form or one class in the unit test here. These are the steps which will be used for conducting the unit test. First step is to create a new project in the Visual C Sharp.net. So for this purpose, select the project and then types of the project will be the test here, and then select the language, that will be the C Sharp.net, and then you need to click the next buttons. Here is the graphical representation of all these three steps, which are the sub steps of the steps 1. First, you have to write the Microsoft test, that is MS test projects. When you will write here the name, you have to select the languages here from this combo box, that will be the C Sharp.net. Then you need to change the project types here. From the project types, you need to select the test here. So because we are performing the testing, so that's why our project will be test. Then you have to click on that particular project to select it, that we are going to develop this project, and there will be the next buttons. You need to click the next buttons after selecting this project type. Now after selecting the project type, you have to write the complete name of the project. So for this purpose, type the name of the project in this text box here, and that name will be the valid project name. Valid project name means that it should be resembles with the name of the project that you are going to test. So just types here the name, that is, for example, if you are testing the basic maths functions, that will be the basic maths test. And then when you type the name here, then click on the create buttons here. The create button is here, or you can go back from this forms to the previous forms or to the steps 1. So this is the step 2 of the example. Then you need to write the test case first. So it's up to your choice. If you are using the Microsoft Visual Studio.net, the Visual Studio will automatically create some code here that will be using Microsoft.visualstudio.testtools.unit testing. So this library shows that the Visual Studio is using the test tools of the Microsoft Visual Studio. Then we have the namespaces here. The namespaces specify the type of the project or the name of the project. The name of the project that we have entered in the first steps, that was the unit test project 1. Next is the public class unit test 1. This is our class, and before the class we have test class reference that shows that we are going to test the class here, and after that there will be the class names. So public class unit test 1, and here is the body of the class. The body of class is from here up to here. Then we have test methods. Test method shows that immediately after that we have a method which will be tested here. So here is the public void test method 1. This function will be called by the compiler when the testing will be performed, and that is the public void test method 1. Its access specifier is the public. That means that this function will be accessible anywhere in the project, and its return type void because it doesn't return anything, just it executes some sequence of statements, and it has the void data types. And this is the function name. Function name is test method 1. It is up to you which types of function you are going to create. Then we have program P, new program. Here we have to declare the object of the class which will be required to be tested. So after this function, we here will declares a class here after this class. So our class will be the program class. So that's why here its name is program P is equal to new program. Now after declaring the objects, we will call the function in that program class. And the function is, for example, the sum function. P.sum is equal to 5, 6. If we provide the two parameters to the sum function, that is 5 and 6, and that values will be in fact assigned to the integer values, because the sum of 5 and 6 is 11 and 11 is integer. So that's why we have declared the integer add data types are the variables, and the values is assigned to that variables. Now assert that equal. As in the previous class, we have already explained the assert class. The assert class is used to test the code or to provide information about the testing, that whether this test has been passed or failed. So the assert class calls the functions and the variables inside of its as like the parameters. So assert that are equal 11, because 5 and 6 sum is 11, and the add is the variable which will return the or provide the 11 value, and test executed will be the statement it shows that test has been executed. Now we are also testing another function which is multiply function. So that's why p dot multiply 5 comma 6. The multiplication of 5 and 6 is 30. So int product is equal to p dot multiply 5 and 6, and assert function assert class will use the r equal functions here, and r equal shows that whether the sum and multiplication of these two values, that is 5 and 6, which is 30. So here we will write that the output should be 30, and product comma test executed means that product is the variable and test executed is the statement which will be displayed here. Now after creating this test cases, now we have to write the program logic of program class. Now immediately after this class, you have to write another class with the name of the program. So here in the 4 steps, we have declared another class which will implement the code logic of the program which will be required to be tested. Now here public class program, this is the public, which means that this class is accessed everywhere in our projects. And then we have the class keywords, which shows that this is the class and program is the name of the class. Now program class contains two different functions. First one is the public int sum int a comma int b. So this function is the sum which returns the summation of two parameters of the integer type, that is int a and int b. So its return is a plus b, and this is the public function. Similarly, public int multiply function int a comma int b. This is another function which will multiply two values a and b, and it will returns one value, and its return type is the integer. Similarly, some function return types is also integer. So this programs will use two different functions, sum and multiplies, to add the two values and multiply the two values, and it will returns their results. Next is step number 5. Show the test explorer. After writing the complete test case and the code which will be required to test, then you have to click on the test menu, then click on the windows, then click on the test explorers. This will show the test explorers. So you cannot execute the test cases without showing or exploring the test explorer. So when you explore this test case, that is the test explorer, then you will be able to test the system. You can also use the Control plus E or the T shortcut keys to show the test explorer. After showing the test explorer, then you will be able to see this window. Now in this window there is a link called run all, and there is also another link just run, and also playlist all test. So playlist all test will execute all the tests. If there are multiple tests, run all will execute all the tests here, but it will just play this link will just play and it will execute the test here, and run will execute only particular test here. So when you click on this run all, then you will see that the green line will appear if there are no bugs or defects in the systems. And if there are certain bugs or defects in the system, then the red lines will be shown here. And here you will see the times which is taken by this IDE to execute the test cases, and the time is in the milliseconds. That is, the millisecond has been taken by executing this test case. 7 millisecond has been taken to execute unit test project 2, and then 7 milliseconds has been taken to execute the unit test 1 function, and then we have the test case function that is called test method 1, and 7 seconds has been taken here. So sometimes if the test cases do not provide us exact results or there are certain problems, so then the red line will appear here, and there will be the message which shows the test has been failed. So here message assert r dot equal failed, expected line number expected is 10, that is expected value is 10 and the actual value is 24. So if I go back to the logic here, you can see that the expected values here is the 11. 5 and 6 is 11. Similarly, the product of 5 and 6 is 30. But if we change here parameters, for example, a minus b, so that is not the summation, it is the subtraction, so it will give us the different values. So then the error message will be shown here that the expected value is 10 but actual value is 24. So that's why the two values are not identical. So hence the test has successfully identified the defect in the system. So you need to correct that particular values. Okay, dear students, now we will execute this example in the Visual Studio. So you have to look very carefully that how we conduct the unit test, that is the Microsoft unit test in the Visual C#.NET. For this purpose, click on Escape button to exit the slides. Here I have exited the slides. Go to Visual Studio. For example, here I am launching my Visual Studio. Click on the Visual Studio. So in the meanwhile, Visual Studio will be launched here. You can see the flash screens of the Visual Studio, that is Visual Studio 2019. I have the latest version, so that's why I do not require any plugin for the testing here. So when you completely install the Visual Studio 2019, automatically the plugin will be here. Now click on the create new projects here. So just click on this buttons here, create a new project. After clicking this, you will be provided with the window where you can select the Microsoft unit test, and then you will write the test cases and the program logics using the Visual Studio. So I have clicked on the creating new projects. So meanwhile, the new projects is creating here. Now, this window will be shown after creating the new project. So select the C# language. You can also change the platform, but here just click on the all platform or select all platform. Then change the project types here. So you have to go down and click on the test. So the project types is test. Automatically you will see here Microsoft Test Projects.NET Core. So click on or select this, and this shows that the C# language, Linux or Microsoft operating system or Windows environments, and the test project will be created. So C#.NET will be the language here. You can use C#.NET on the Linux, Microsoft Mac operating system, that is the Mac operating system, and Windows, Microsoft Windows. You can use the project for these three different platforms, and the type of the project will be the test. Click on the next. So when you will click on the next, you need to write here the name of the project. The name of the project should be as like the purpose of the projects here. So I will type here that I'm using a unit test for this particular project. So unit test calculation project. So I am going to perform the unit test for the calculation projects here. After writing the name of the projects, click on the create button. Here you can see this is the create button. Click on the create buttons to create the project for you. So meanwhile, the Visual Studio is going to create the project for me of the unit test here. Now Visual Studio has created the project for me, and some built-in codes has already been created here. And you can see that the Visual Studio has created a class unit test 1, and before the class there is the test class in fact attributes here. This attribute shows that this class is performing the test which is coming after this attributes. Then again we have another attribute test methods, and this attribute shows that the next one is a method which will be required performing the test, and this method will be used to perform the test here. Now here I will write the test cases. So first of all I need to write the name of the class which will be required to test. So for example my class name is the program, and I need to declare the object here. So program p new similarly program. You can see that there is the cross button. It shows that currently this class is not available in this project, so that's why this is the red circles here. So it is not an errors, but you have to just avoid that errors. When I have declared the objects here, then I can also declare a public class here. So automatically you will see that this red line will be removed when I in fact declares a program the class here. So public class program, and then the body of the class. So now you can see that the red lines are disappeared. So that means that now there is no problem in this program. Next, I need to write the test cases. So I have to implement two functions. For example, first one is the sum function. So here I will write s is equal to that is the sum function which I am going to write here. So s is equal to p dot sum, but I have no sum function, so that's why it's also underlined red here because there is no sum function in this class here. So you will just write first your sum function, then as soon as you will implement this functions here, this red line will be removed here. So I have declared the sum function here which will add 4 and 5, and the values will be assigned to s. Now this will add two values, that is 4 and 5. Similarly, I will write another function, that is the product function. So for this purpose, PR, I will use the PR. I cannot use the P because already we have used here the P object. So that's why PR is equal to P dot multiply. So P dot multiply functions will multiply two values. So multiplication on 4 and 5 is in fact 20, and the sum of 4 and 5 is 9. So that is the multiplication function. Now I will use the asserts class, asserts dot are equals. So assert dot are equal class will in fact test that whether this code is equal or not. So first I will use here, for example, if the sum of 4 and 5 is 9, then it means that the Sum of 4 and 5 is 9, and 9 is provided through the S values, S variables. So here S variables will print the 9 values here. And here I will write a certain message that will be displayed when this test has been will be performed. So test executed, for example, test executed is in fact a message that will be tested here. Similarly, again I will write asserts for testing the multiplications. So asserts, then dot assert dot r equals assert dot r equal, and 20 will be the results of er value. Similarly, I will also write certain statements that will be provided as executed or test performed. Now, my test cases is now completed. Now, also I have to implement these functions here in this program class. So for this purpose, because the functions are returning the in sum and the product values, which are the integer value, so that's why I need to write two public functions. So public int sum. The name of this function should be very much identical with this name. So you will see that as soon as I declare this function, this red line will be eliminated. Now int a comma int b are two different parameters, and now you see that the red lines is disappeared from this sum function because I have just declared this function. Similarly, it will return a plus b, return a plus b, a plus b. Okay, now I have completed one function. Similarly, I will also write the multiplication functions here. So for this purpose, write the public int multiplication function, and multiplication function also requires two parameters, int a, int b, which are the integer types. And then we have the body of the multiplication function. It will return a cross b, a cross b. Now everything is now completed. I have first written a test case here, and then I have written the logic of the program. And now I will click on the test explorers, click on the windows, click on the test explorers. So when you will click on this test explorer, you will see the test explorers here. So just click here. Now you can see that the test explorer has been displayed here. Click on the run all test to execute that test. So I have clicked on the test explorers to test all the test cases. So meanwhile the test has been performed, and then click on the test explorers. You can see that the green line has been appeared. That shows that there is no problem in our program logics. If you explore these options, so you will see that the test method has been executed successfully. So that means that it taken 7 milliseconds times to execute this test case. Now I'm making a certain logical mistakes here. For example, the sum of two parameters is in fact here is the um, subtraction. That means sum of two values is 4 minus 5, which is minus 1. Now again I will go to test, then click on the test explorers, again click on the run all test. Again the test is in fact running there. You can see that the statement is displayed there. That's each and every statement has been displayed. Click on this. Now you can see there is the red line, which shows that the test has identified certain defects here. Now what is the problem here? The problem is that one, that the assert dot equal field expected is 9 and the actual is minus 1. So here the expected is net, but the sum function is returning -1, which is in fact not according to our test cases. So that means that there is a certain problems here. So that's why there is a that shows that here is certain particular problems which shows that the expected value is not equal to the actual values. So again, if I correct these statements and if again I show the test explorers and again run all statements, then you will see that now there is the green line. So that shows that now the actual value is the same as that of the expected values. So this was a unit test in Microsoft Visual Studio.net. Similarly, you can also do a certain logical mistakes here. For example, just I write here return 1, and again I will click on the test explorers, run all test, and now all the test has been run. Now again there is the errors because the expected is 20 and the actual is 4. The expected is here is 20 because here in the above statements of the asserts we have shown that the product of 4 and 5 is 20, but actually it is just returning the first parameter, which is the 4, and actually is the 4 here. So the problem is here in our program language. So that's why I need to correct it. So that's why I will rewrite the statement, and again I will perform the test here. You will see that now this green line will be changed into red line will be changed into green line. Now that is now the green line. So it shows that the test has passed here. So this was the unit test in the Visual Studio.net. Dear students, this is the end of the lectures. Hope that you have learned a lot in these lectures. In the future, you will go to the to the software houses for software development, and there you will see the Visual C#.net as a programming language tool. So you will also be responsible for performing the unit test in the Visual C#.net. So that's why I have explains it with the practical example in the Microsoft Visual Studio.net. Hope that that will help you. And these are two book references. If you want to study more, you can use these two book references, but these are not practical. These are just theoreticals. These books will just give you a practical approach for writing the test cases. The book name is Practical Model Based Testing, a tools approach by Mark Uting and the Bruno Ledger. Similarly, there is another book which is explaining the unit test with the help of the UML. So that is the component based software testing with the UML. So you should study these two books for these topics. Also, if you have any question, you can write email to me. My email is m.kadim@kust.edu.pk. I will respond to your emails and will answer your each and every questions. Thank you very much.